Hi, this is Marc Rettig from Fit Associates, and I want to just give a quick story about assessment and evaluation for the REACH network. There's three parts in what I want to say. I'm going to try to keep it under 10 minutes. We're learning to match our evaluation to the complexity of the challenge and how that looks different than the practices we might have all learned, and then a quick story. So here's this first part. First, we discern. In any project, there's different levels of complexity, and we tend to use too small a set of approaches. We have some things that are really clear. Is the bathroom clean? We have some things that are very complicated. We might need some expertise. Is the factory efficient? We might have truly complex things. So for the clear things, when everybody pretty much knows how to assess it, just collect data in the way that's commonly agreed and monitor. How are we doing? If it's complicated, we may need some skill in data collection, and we may need expertise. We may need experts to both help collect it and analyze it. So do that. And that tends to be our whole kit. Where I've been excited is adding a set of approaches for when it's truly complex. And when something is mostly made of people, it's complex. So when it's complex, cause and effect are it's the wrong lens. We can notice patterns, but really we only know what happened in retrospect. So we can practice, there's a lot of terms for this: developmental evaluation, participatory, principles-focused evaluation. So our tool for this assessment has been the Cynefin framework, which I'm not going to go into here, but I'm happy to talk about it to any of you later. But how does this different? When we're evaluating in complexity, how is it different? There's some questions there. I think it doesn't just affect the assessment, it affects the whole process and the team. So a few differences. One is that rather than evaluating at the end, evaluation is just part of the unfolding process. It's something that's talked about from the beginning, and there's attention paid. It's like a way of paying attention, a way of noticing throughout the work, because we want to learn and adjust as we go. And rather than using metrics to measure our progress toward a predetermined goal, as though we could actually describe the state of something as complex as a community, we do more noticing patterns, and stories are a really important tool for that, because we're looking at invisible things, relationship and behavior that really not well suited to quantitative kind of measurements. Another is this question of whose authority, whose values, who decides what's important to measure. We're used to this small, usually external group that has some power to control and trying to make things better in their terms, versus in developmental evaluation, the whole community, everyone involved in the work, sensing and responding as they walk through the uncertainty of complexity. So it's rather than these episodes where we're measuring and trying to notice what's good or better or right, we're always in conversation to see if we're moving in our desired direction. It's not that we're trying to get to a predefined destination. We've agreed that there's some directions we want to travel in. And we may even notice that partway through, we no longer want to go in the direction we said. We want to adjust our course. So this is assessment as a steering mechanism. So here's a quick story. This was a group of about, less than 20 people, mixed race cohort, all who lived in the same area. So this is I know it's a much smaller example than a lot of the projects that people in our network do, but maybe it's an example that I can tell a story in a short amount of time. So we had these principles for the group of diversity, low barriers to access, and it was about personal development and a practice, community of practice. So some metrics were just for us, like that clear thing, is the bathroom clean? We could notice for ourselves whether we were living out our principles of convening diversity across a lot of different dimensions. And so here's the group. But this question of what really matters, who are we to say what matters to these people whose experience is very different than ours? So we seeded with some ideas and then did an activity where people wrote their own versions, their own language about this question. When it comes to your learning and growth, what's important to you? How will we notice that this group is valuable? And then the hosts synthesized that, clustered it, and then ran that by the participants so that the language was all of ours, not just the hosts. And that became a self-assessment tool. This chart, or this grid on the right here, was made into a big sheet that people could just put dots on according to the 5-point scale on the right. I don't know, when it comes to relaxing and resting, 1, I struggle and don't know what to do. 5, I feel strong, I'm very competent in that. People put dots at where they were. And having done that at the beginning, those things became part of the group's vocabulary, part of the conversation. We could notice whether we were giving more attention to one thing, not enough attention to another thing. This is an example. Oh, I feel better along this dimension because of tonight's session, so on. So everybody used at the beginning and at the end to put their dots down. So at the end, we could notice what changed and where there was the most change, where was the least change. This really helps us if we're designing a next iteration, a next version of the same material. If we were talking to a funder, this shows that there's impact. So this is the closest we got to something that looked quantitative. But for ourselves, the stories were what matter, that the stories really bring substance and emotion to the question of how did we do. So developmental evaluation. The people who are living the work notice whether there's progress on the things that matter to them and adjust accordingly along the way. Thank you much. See you soon.